Hello everyone, welcome back to the new episode of Building Conduit. So in the last video we implemented logout functionality, as well as we started implementing the settings where you can update the user's information. However, we have a problem where the user's information is not being rendered properly. So in order to solve this issue, what we're going to do is we are going to render this component if and only if the auth state is present, right? So if we wrap the settings form with the auth state, now this shouldn't be an issue anymore, and we should be seeing the right information. Perfect. So that was easy. Perfect. Okay, so what are we going to do next? Next, what are we going to do is we're going to remove this initial state from the settings form and just paste it outside the component. And currently there's no way to inspect the reagent state because it is declared inside the let block. So in order to inspect it temporarily, what we're going to do is we're going to take the state out of the component and just reset the state when we have the user. So now this is just a hack to inspect the state. So if we deref the state now, we should be able to inspect the current user's information. So if I change something, there you go, the email has been updated. So this is just a very easy way to inspect your state. So let's change the website, and if we add something new, this should also be reflected on the state. And let's also add some bio. I make ClojureScript videos, and if I invoke the state, the information should be updated. Alright, so now we have the form working. What we need to do next is to make an API request, right? So so let's try updating the password. Why not, right? So as you can see, my new password. All right, so everything works as expected. So now the next step is so right now it doesn't really do anything. If I click on update settings, it just logs the user information. So in order to do that, we have to go back to the auth namespace, and we're just going to copy not the me function, but actually the login function. Let's just copy this for now and paste it underneath the me function. We're going to call this function save user, and it is going to accept a map, a user map, and we are also going to change the endpoint just /user, and also import put function. So it's going to be a put, not a post. We also need to add the header because this is an authenticated request, and the success handler will be the same as the get me success as well as get me error. So we're going to reuse these two handlers. And now also let's change the input to user so that the warning disappears. Now let's test our function. So if we call the function, and let's try to update our username, not our username, but let's try to update the URL, for example. So if I say learnuidev.com, and if I call this function on the REPL, if you go to the network tab, you should see 200. So the put request, the response is 200, and we have the updated user back from the server. Now if I refresh the page, we should see learnuidev.com on the top of the page. Awesome. Okay, so let's also rename the auth state to example user, so that let's try to update the bio as well. We will say I teach ClojureScript and Clojure. I make videos on Clojure and ClojureScript. And now if I run this function and refresh, as you can see over here, the text has been updated. Let's fix the typo. Videos, videos, videos. Now if I refresh, everything is working fine. Perfect. So now that we know that our function is working, let's require this function in the settings namespace. And instead of printing the user, we're going to call this function and passing the user. Okay, now it's time to test our component. So let's add more stuff. Let's say that I make videos on Clojure and ClojureScript on topics such as web development. What other videos do I make? Databases, right? I love Datomic, so I make videos on Datomic. I'm planning on making videos on serverless as well as GraphQL, because I love serverless and GraphQL. Now if I update, okay, it works. So our setting functionality is working just fine. Let's also now that we don't need to test our state, we can just revert back the changes. So we'll add the state back inside the lit block, and we're just gonna have it back as it was before. So yeah. Let's just test to see everything works, just for the sake of our mind, for the peace of our mind. So let's just edit our bio, make it multi-lined, because why not, right? So as you can see over here, there's something wrong with the image. But we'll worry about that later. So yeah, so let's save this and let's refresh, and yes, as you can see, the changes has been reflected. So yeah, so that's it for the settings form. What else? So if you inspect the auth state, as you can see, we have the new bio updated. Awesome. Okay, so the next step, what we're going to do is we're going to implement this profile functionality. So if I go to /@username, it should land us to this username page. So this is the production version of how it should look like. And in order to do that, so right now we are just showing the register page. If we go to the usernames handlebar, so the first step is to create a page called profile.cljs. And here we are going to declare our namespace. And for now, we'll name it profile page, and this function is going to return a div that says profile page. And we will have to require this in the routes. So right below these settings, we are going to import it and refer to the profile page. And so this is going to be a nested route, right? Because the username is unique to each user. So we're gonna have a route called user/username. And to see how the nested route works, we're going to check out the Reitit frontend repository, right? So if you look at the repository, we have to add few things to our route. We have to add the parameters key, and this ensures coercion. So we are stating that first let's change the name of our route. So it will be route/profile, and the view will be profile page. And the new parameter key, which we saw now, we have to pass the username as a string. So this will help Reitit with the coercion, right? If you were to, now this could be anything, right? It could be UID or it could be number. In our case here, for example, it is a string. So that's why we're passing the username as a string. Okay, so the next step is to, so if you look at the routes on the production, the URL, there's this ampersand, there's this @ sign in front of the username. So it's just not, so there you go. So this, by passing the @ sign in front of the username, now instead of foo, we will have user/@foo. So there you go, the profile page works. Now the next step is to access the username value, the username of this particular user. So how are we going to do that? In order to do that, we're going to add the controllers, and for now we're going to add just the start function. And let's just console log to see what, or let's create an atom, and let's reset the value of the props to see what's inside this props. So to do that, we will declare an atom, and we'll call it temp, and it'll have nothing. And let's also inspect it. So if I refresh the page, so there's nothing in the controllers, right? But what we want is we want the value of the parameters coming from the controllers. So how are we going to do this? So the way to do this is to pass so yeah, if we log in entering, let's also add this entering so that we know that it is working. Okay, so it is working, the controller is working. And let's also try to log the props. Let's refresh, and yeah, so there's nothing there, right? It returns nil. So but what we want is we want a map, right? We want this controller, this props, to be a map. So how can we do that? So if you go to the Reitit controller, you can see that they have passed a params property. So this is exactly what we need. So by passing params in the controllers, we will be able to capture the parameter, the username. So this is a trick that I learned. Again, if you want to learn about Reitit, playing with their examples is the best way to learn. But yeah, so this is what I learned. So we have to add params. Now if you refresh this, now we should see something. So there you go. Now we have a sequence. So if I remove that amp and sign, so there you go. Now we have a map, and inside the map we have username, and we can destructure this from this props now, and let's log it. Later on we will use this username to fetch if the user with this username exists or not, right? And we're going to do this in the we're going to do this here, but for now we're just going to log it, and we'll say entering profile of. Now you'll see entering profile of Learn UI Dev 2021. Awesome. So our nested route works. The next step is to go to the layout, and we want to pass the router state in the current view. Because why do we want to do this? Because we want to show the information, right, of the username in the profile page. So as you can see, we have the route state, and actually before we go and do that, let's go to the profile in the React page and see what's happening inside this component. So if you go to if you scroll up and see so if you look at the component build mount, it is making two requests, right? It's making a get request on the profile, as well as it is fetching all the articles of that particular user. So so if you look at the path params, we have the username. So yeah, let's pass it as a argument to the current view. Actually, let's not do that. Let's delete this from here, and let's try to require the route state directly into the component and see what happens, right? Just for fun. You'll see something interesting. I'm not going to ruin the surprise. So let's go to the profile.cljs and require the route state, and let's see what happens. So if we try to, this seems easy, right? Requiring directly, but we will run into an issue, and that issue is now we have a circular dependency, right? Because we are requiring the profile in the routes page, and now requiring routes in the profile, so there is this circular dependency, so we cannot do this. So we have to delete this from here. Just wanted to show you, right? I believe in making mistakes. The more mistakes you make, the better you become as a developer. So yeah, so you cannot directly require the routes, so we have to pass it inside the current view. And now the profile page, the routes is an argument. We are passing it to the component, right? Yeah, so the next step is to, so let's use the same trick that we used last time. Let's just create a temp atom, and we're going to reset the temp with the routes argument that we passed. So this makes it easier to inspect the routes, right? This is just a trick that I learned. So now if I deref the temp, it should show us the current route. So as you can see, we have the router. Awesome. Again, this is just a temporary thing. It makes it easy for you when you're developing a software, especially in ClojureScript. You can leverage the REPL. Okay, so what we want to do is we want to destructure the path params, and we're going to destructure the username from the path params. So instead of path, we'll say keys, and we're going to destruct the username, and we want to show this username. Awesome. Oh, so now we cannot reset the routes. You know what, let's just delete this, because yeah, now that we know what the route looks like, we don't really need to do the reset. Actually, you know what, let's just delete this, and no, you know what, let's just go back. Let's just delete this, it's just simpler, and let's just add back what we had from before. And now if you save it, now we should see Learn UI Dev 2021. Awesome. So we are already in 20-minute mark. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you learned a lot. We covered a lot of concepts. We finished with the functionality where the user can update the user information. We also implemented the profile page. We also looked at how we can do nested routing. And in the next video, we're going to finish off with the profile page. And thank you so much, and see you in the next episode.